What does Intel do? Intel makes CPUs. And what does NVIDIA do? NVIDIA makes GPUs. So CPUs are general purpose computers. It can be used in many places. It's very sophisticated and it can do many different tasks. That's what goes into all the computers, all the mobile phones and things like that. Then what has come up in new post AI is GPUs, which is graphic processor units. Now these graphic processing units called GPUs do they do one task very well, but they can't do everything.
Hi, welcome back to the Investment Lab. Today we are going to dive into the biggest shakeups in the global chip industry. The king of AI hardware, NVIDIA, just invested $5 billion into its rival. Why would NVIDIA invest into its closest competitor? To understand how this deal can shape up the AI hardware industry across the world, we have with us Amit Sharma. Amit, could you throw some light on what exactly happened and why?
Thanks, Anuj. First of all, let me give you a brief introduction of why I know a little bit about semiconductors. So as Anuj mentioned, I did my electrical engineering from IIT Delhi. As part of my BTech project, I did create a chip during my final year project at IIT Delhi. And yes, we had all the equipment even back then. Then I've worked in Texas Instruments and Micron in Singapore for about 3+ years before moving on into the investment world, where I've spent most of my time. But given I know this industry, I've worked in there, that's basically something very close to me. Coming to Anuj's point about NVIDIA taking a stake in Intel, it's a momentous occasion in a different way. It may not mean too much in terms of investment implications and all, which I will come and explain, but it's momentous in a different way. I just want to give you a number, Anuj, and you should be interested. In 2014, let me just read some facts. Yeah, in 2014, Intel's revenues were $55 billion, and its market cap was $178 billion. Right? Back then, NVIDIA existed. NVIDIA's revenues were $4 billion, and its market cap was $8 billion. This is 2014, just 10 years ago. Come today, or rather 2024, Intel's revenues were $53 billion, so almost the same as what they were in 2014. Its market cap is $137 billion, below the 178 in 2014. NVIDIA, on the other hand, its revenues are $130 billion, and its market cap is $4 trillion. Right? So at one point, NVIDIA was literally 5% of the size of Intel in market cap terms in 2014. Now that same company, the thing has flipped. Intel is 2.5% of market cap of NVIDIA. On that perspective, something momentous has clearly happened. A company which was nothing has become a global leader in AI chips. And Intel, for whatever it is, it used to be a giant, and it used to be the company which any electrical engineer looked forward to joining. Has become stagnant. So something has given away. Some mistakes were made, but some other companies keep on capturing, and that's the market. And to me, that is a more momentous thing. Now, what you're saying is NVIDIA has taken a 5% stake in Intel, or roughly 5%, slightly less than 5% stake in Intel. I'll go through the details of the deal, and then we will break it down in terms of parts and say, how is this relevant or not relevant? So first of all, is $5 billion a big number for Intel? At the moment, it's not really. I mean, the company is 138 billion market cap, but right now it's in debt. It's got debt. Is it a big number for NVIDIA? Not at all. The company is generating $60-70 billion a year. Just additional cash being generated, net of everything, right? So it's not a big number, but NVIDIA is investing $5 billion into Intel. Second thing they're doing is they are using Intel chips. Given how AI works, GPUs are much more, much better, for the work of AI. And that's where NVIDIA has really taken up the lead and changed the game. The second place where NVIDIA has changed the game, how it came from 4 billion to 160 billion revenues, is, well, they were first and ahead in AI. But the second thing they did is how they've made sure they don't manufacture their own chips. They only design. And they let the best company in the world, which can manufacture chips, manufacture them. And the best company which does all the best high-end manufacturing is TSMC, it's Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. You must have heard the name. So they've changed the game in terms of going for something different and doing it differently. And it's working because the world needs it right now. So that was the whole background behind NVIDIA and what Intel does. I don't know if I'm confusing you or is it useful?
No, it is. Let me tell you, we as normal laymen, we understood that they were doing the same thing, and now NVIDIA has taken the lead in the AI. But you've just explained us exactly how they may complement each other. I do not know, but maybe they complement each other. So it's an important,
Yeah, they are different. Yeah, they're different. So I just wanted to make that point clear that NVIDIA does things differently from Intel. And what they are doing now is trying to collaborate. So the first thing is just a stake, which I understand. Second thing is now what they're saying is for their GPUs, NVIDIA is going to use some Intel CPUs and make better products, right? So not only will NVIDIA be one of the customers to Intel, they will also be a strategic investor in Intel, and they will also be involved in the product roadmap of Intel. So, and how they can work together. I hope that's clear. So it seems like quite an important step. It will follow with a but from me, and there will be a lot of, So I just to summarize my view on this, whilst it looks good and all that, I don't think it's going to change the investment roadmap. It won't change the investment, case for Intel. It won't change the investment case for NVIDIA, and it certainly doesn't change the semiconductor world right now. And the reason why I say that is, one, as I explained earlier, Intel one time used to be the leader and the king, and every company used to look up to it. And why would they look up to it? Because they used to have the best manufacturing technology. Over time now, what has happened in the past 6-7 years is Intel has lost its edge on the high-end manufacturing. They are at least a couple of years behind TSMC on the latest technology thing. So their main game is really playing catch up with TSMC. Does this deal change anything for that? The answer is not really. So that's my nutshell of this, but you can please ask me any further questions if you have any.
So TSMC, does it manufacture GPUs or CPUs or both?
Everything. It manufactures everything. It manufactures CPU for AMD, another company. They manufacture GPUs for our guys NVIDIA. They are manufacturing custom chips for companies like Broadcom. They're making many. So the beauty of TSMC model, which also developed out of nowhere 25 years ago, and when I've been in the industry, is that they are just very good at manufacturing. They don't design anything. You give them the design, they will manufacture it. Now, in this process, semiconductor is a very complicated beast. I don't know if people understand it, but on a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter silicon chip, there are at least, like, you build a 37-story skyscraper on that 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter chip, and not just one, millions of them, right? So it's a super complicated process, both in designing and manufacturing. Now, a lot of companies can still design it, but the real thing is, how do you manufacture it? And the leader here is TSMC, and they've been able to do it for everything. And so I had to answer your question.
Yeah, Amit, what you said was, in this conversation, you said TSMC manufactures GPUs for NVIDIA, right? Now, what I really wanted to, because I was analyzing the AI race that is going on across the world, and US on one side and China on the other side are both in the race of AI and disrupting it and innovating. So NVIDIA could have invested in TSMC, but the fact that first the US government became 10% shareholder of Intel, and then I'm just connecting the dot. So at this point of time, the US government is 10% shareholder of Intel, and now NVIDIA invests, as you said, under 5% and probably 4% or something into Intel. They chose to invest within US. So is it about the AI race and how US wants to retain the dominance there?
Actually, your question is connected in a different way, but you raise a very, very important point, and that is the importance of semiconductors as an industry to the US and to the world. And let me give you another statistic, which will be very interesting and puts things in context again. In about 1990, and I've seen this industry from 95 onwards till now, and in about 95, 96, if I were to look at it, I think about 40% of manufacturing of semiconductors used to happen in the US. Right now, that number is probably close to 10%. And all that has gone to, to Taiwan, South Korea, all that. And Europe is even worse. Europe, I think, probably used to manufacture 10 to 15% of semiconductors in Europe. And I've visited fabs in France and things like that. France, Germany, all those have shut down. All those have shut down, moved to Taiwan and the like. So I think Europe probably hardly at all now contributes to it. So the developed markets have given up their manufacturing capability in the outsourcing, stream that happened when globalization was going on. But I think now the US administration has realized actually how important semiconductors are. How do you make your planes if you don't have semiconductors? If for whatever reason, you don't get those semiconductors, you can't make the most advanced technology, right? You can't make the most advanced rocket. You cannot be ahead in the AI game as we brought in. So your point on AI is one, but semiconductors are of equal or more importance in missiles, in planes, in everything, right? In everything. So I think the US government has made a very strategic choice. And, all those actions that you're saying, government investing into Intel, NVIDIA investing into Intel, is to have a strategic call that let us get more manufacturing locally. And who's the guy who can do it? It is Intel. The only thing, unfortunately, is, so to answer your question, there are geopolitics involved in this, and there is a strategitic investment which the US is making, and which is the right step. The only problem, as I said, is Intel is at least 2 to 3 years behind, a TSMC. And what that means is, when I say behind, is their technology is slower and takes, it heats up more and all sorts of problems. So it is inferior. So a chip produced by Intel is inferior than a chip produced by TSMC by about 2 years. Now I think that's a technological problem. It's not a money problem. You understand? So you can throw money at a problem, but your chip cannot become smaller because there is a problem at the physics levels and somebody needs to sort that out. So I think these investments will not change that equation for Intel. Yes, but however, at the same time, will Intel get some more grants from the government? Will Intel get some more customers because of these strategic things? Possibly. But will Intel be able to cover that gap? It is to be seen.
Okay. So, interesting. One figure I want to just clarify. You said 10% of the semiconductors of the world are presently manufactured in US. And then you said South Korea. What about China? What is the approximate percentage there? It's like 30, 40%?
No. China is behind in this game as well. Actually, China in semiconductors is behind in the game as well. If Intel is 2 years behind TSMC, I think China is probably, you can't quote me on that, but I think it is probably another few more years behind. So semiconductors is a race where both US and China are slow. China has been trying to build its strategic advantage for the past 10 years. They've spent billions of dollars and they have made progress, leaps and bounds of progress. And I see a lot of progress, but still it is behind. So, but the number is not 30-40%. China doesn't produce that much. I think 40% of it is produced by Taiwan. There is South Korea, there is Japan, and then there is some US, and of course there'll be China too. But that's how I would split it. I don't know the exact numbers though.
Fact is that most of us use the Windows PCs that we use, may it be Lenovo or whichever. It always has Intel inside. The fact is that, and now with a GPU company, the king of GPUs, buying into investing into Intel, can we expect some product enhancement for the end users like us? I mean, the laptops that we use. Can we expect the Intel CPU, which is, already Intel chip is inside our laptop, and now NVIDIA? Can we expect something there as an end user of the product?
Yes, you're right. There was an implication where the Intel CPUs will use a little bit of GPUs, which are very better, the NVIDIA GPU architecture within its chips. So they will do something like that as well. So it should benefit end users too. But don't be in a hurry. In semiconductor, a product takes a couple of years to design, and then another year to manufacture, and another year to start getting to production level. So it's a 2 to 3 year phenomena. And I think Intel has got to do a lot of groundwork before that as well. As I said, they can't make their own GPUs faster at the moment. So they are struggling. Now, I'm just saying this is the current state of affairs. Can Intel sort that issue? Of course, with time they will. They can, and with the resources they can. But it's a technological problem which they have to deal with, and get the best people to work on that issue, not just a money issue.
Right. So as I mentioned, Amit has been investing in the global tech industry across the world. Amit, I know the way you explained, this alliance may have short-term impact, may have long-term impact, which are yet to, of course, we are yet to see. But could you just give us a feel of what happened in the markets as this alliance has been announced? What do we expect in the global market? Let's say US. I know you're well invested there. So what is it that we can expect there? And then we'll, of course, get into the Indian markets later on.
So Anuj, I think you make a very good point in terms of how this deal may move things. I think one thing what happened on the day of the deal was clearly Intel stock price went up 25%. Now Intel has been Intel has been cheap. It's been trading below its book value, which means whatever cash they've put in to build factories, they're trading below that. But that doesn't mean anything because some investors think Intel will keep on burning cash, so it will keep on eating into its book value. So so it's not cheap. I do not have a call on Intel because I think the call on Intel, it's cheap, but it really relies on can they make that switch, technological switch, and cover that gap with TSMC. If they can't, then there is a problem. If they can, then there may be upside. So it comes down to Intel specific from one investment perspective. The second thing is from an NVIDIA's perspective, it's too small an investment which will make any difference to NVIDIA's share price. NVIDIA is a $4 trillion company, remember. It's a very small investment for them. Now, does it mean much in terms of the semiconductor space? I think semiconductor space itself, as you may understand, the way AI is going, AI in its own self has created another 30 to 40% of the semiconductor market, which did not exist before. So AI, the GPU space that we are just talking about, and there is so anything to do with AI processing is going through a big, massive demand shift up. And as I was just mentioning, NVIDIA's revenues 10 years ago were $4 billion. Now it's $160 billion. That's just a new industry being made out of it. 160 billion. So that's NVIDIA. Then you've got AMD. Then you've got Broadcom. Then you've got Marvell. Then you've got many other companies which are making chips in the AI space. And if you just look at the capex of 4 of the top 10 tech companies, the Googles, Microsofts, and this and that, they themselves are spending $200 billion this year in capex, out of which I think 2/3 is going to go into AI. So roughly $200 billion have been added to the semiconductor market, which includes every chip, auto chip, this chip, that chip. And that market is, the overall semiconductor market is roughly like $700 billion. Now you add another $200 billion on top of it, is massive growth. So you don't need this deal. You have to see what's happening in the world. And our labs, we are tracking it very closely. This AI transition has increased the demand for semiconductors by quite a lot. And then that's not it. Semiconductor demand is already increasing everywhere. Do you know a typical EV has like 5x the amount of semiconductor than a normal car? Right? That's another increase. What about these smartphones? These smartphones everybody has, they are more or less like a computer which you used to have 5 years ago. There's as much electronics in there. So I think semiconductor industry on its own, while I'm close to it and close to my heart, I think it is going through a big revival, and everybody's seeing how this is the bedrock of everything that we are doing on top of it. And I think this industry is going to do very well.
Right. And you've seen some fluctuations, as you mentioned, in the US market, the Intel. How did the AMD perform?
AMD was down a little bit, down 4 or 5%. But again, the thing is, what's good for Intel may be bad for AMD, and people are just on markets on a day-to-day basis. They take the news, and some say the Intel stock price was up because there was short covering. People were short on the stock, and then suddenly good news comes out, they want to get out. So it's not all fundamental related, as you will understand. So to me, I think it is neutral to slightly positive, and that's it.
I know India is at a very nascent stage, and it's just started moving baby steps towards this industry, the semiconductor industry, with a plant coming up in Gujarat, and even Vedanta and Foxconn that went through its hurdles. But yes, there's a plant coming up in Gujarat. So I know it's baby steps, but we as the tech investors in India would like to take your insight of how things can shape up for us in India.
Anuj, very good point. I'll go in two different perspectives here. First is from the point of view of India as a country. India as a country, I mean, as I just mentioned, semiconductors are strategic investments. You need to have local capability. As we saw in the recent, geopolitical issues that we had recently, we saw how indigenization helps. So, absolutely, India should have it. I'm of the view that we've always had very good talent in semiconductor space, but that ended up going out because there was no industry. Now, if we have something, that should be helpful. So I think, and the word you used, the phrase you used, baby steps, is very relevant, because don't expect us to become a TSMC straight away, but we have to go through the path. We have to start somewhere, and I think that starting we have to do, right? So that's from one perspective. Now, from the perspective of an Indian investor, I think first and foremost, every Indian investor should have some exposure to US tech and to semiconductor stocks worldwide. These are the best of the companies. These are very hard to replicate, and they're going to do phenomenally well over the next 3 to 5 years. So I think having US exposure, US tech exposure, makes complete sense. Secondly, should you look at Indian semiconductor companies as well? Of course, please, I think it's worth studying and all, but we are in very nascent stages there, and you may take time to figure out what's the right business. The businesses will take time to mature, and by then the industry will keep on moving on. So I think to be at the leading edge, there is no other way but to invest in US tech or Taiwanese companies or some other businesses like that. I hope I answered your question.
Sure. That's I do understand the hardware is it takes a lot of time to develop. But what about the SaaS industry in India? Because will AI become more accessible or cheaper with this alliance?
No, this alliance means nothing for global chips and all that. So I think what you have to watch out for is how much the government is putting emphasis on AI within India, how much the government is going to spend as a country, how much of our startups will spend on this industry. We're tracking it very closely, by the way, Anuj. There are some industries which are well ahead even in the AI space. And there's another statistic I want to give you. I think India has, so the world has roughly about a couple of million AI engineers, and that's it. That's all. A couple of million. In a world of 8 billion people, there are a couple of million of AI engineers, of which about 400K are coming from India, right? So India has the advantage of talent. Now, if that talent is given the hardware and the capabilities, I think we can do things. So far, I've seen the government numbers, government projections are not that big. They are at the tune of $1 billion or $2 billion, which will be spent over the years. I suspect those are very initial numbers. Those numbers are going to move up dramatically. I suspect Indian startups will use AI much more efficiently, but they will also require a lot more AI and GPU and capacity for compute. And the sooner the capacity comes, the better it will be. I think, so I'm quite bullish on the AI adoption in India, and especially from the talent perspective. I think what is lacking is money backing it.
The H1B just might help the new reforms, getting some talent back.
We are producing enough engineers of very high quality, and H1B is, so just to put in perspective, I think we produce, I don't know how many, so 1.5 million people, million engineers a year, I think, but you can check these numbers. In H1B, we get only 70,000 H1B a year. So I mean, it helps, but it's a sideshow. There are enough good people in India still. We can keep complaining about brain drain and stuff. There are enough good people in India still.
So this whole alliance, NVIDIA and Intel, was unexpected, but this is going to shape up at least I can say the US semiconductor industry for sure. Since you've been in this industry and you analyze each and every move that has been made in this industry across the world, just as a think tank, because in our investment lab is also a think tank. So I would like to just take your input on or I would like to take your opinion. At a sector level, what are the alliances that can help India shape up its industry? In the sense, are there alliances that can be within India that can stimulate or can be an impetus to this industry?
I think it's already happening in some form or the other. If you look at the smartphone penetration, so India has built a lot of infrastructure and a lot of data infrastructure. the financial transaction infrastructure that we have is unbeatable. The GST data that we have is unmatchable. It's like very high quality. Then there are all these companies like Bharti, Reliance, Jio, who are collecting loads and loads of data, right? And then I'm just giving you examples of some. Then so what do you need for AI? I think you need three things. You need data, you need compute, which is GPU capacity, and you need smart programs and algos and smart people. I think we have data, we have smart people, we are just lacking compute. And for that, who's got the best compute in the world right now? It is the large companies like Amazon, AWS, Google. We are already using them. I think everybody's using them, right? Now, increasingly, there is, where else is compute coming from? You've got data centers which are coming up in India. There are data centers which are opened, by Hiranandani, the Yotta. There are other data centers which are coming up. Reliance, Bharti is opening up data centers. And these data centers are mostly for GPU compute capacity. And I think what is lacking is just enough chips, enough compute, and and that will be helpful if we can get more of it.
That was very interesting. So you pinpointed we need AI is all about three things: data, compute, and skilled manpower. We have
Manpower and algos, yes.
and algos. Yeah. So we have the data. Our digital infrastructure is amongst the best in the world. We have the skill. We all know about that. The compute is in the making, as in the clouds that are and the data centers that are coming up, as you said. Looking forward to being part of the race. I'm sure we will be very soon. So Amit, this was great. This was technical, and you gave an investment perspective to it. This was very helpful. Thanks for being part of the lab, and look forward to more insights like these.
Always happy to chat about anything like this. Thank you.
Thanks, Amit. Thanks. Cheers, man.